You're listening to the Journey podcast. Could embracing a philosophy of whole health over hustle offer a roadmap to greater health, fulfillment, and happiness? Stay tuned for today's episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we dive into the importance of prioritizing holistic health over powering through, guided by our guest's insightful perspective on achieving balance and vitality in life. We explore the detrimental effects of the hustle culture prevalent in today's society, shedding light on the toll it can take on our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Kristen Owens is a mom of 3 from Toronto and a renowned nutrition and mindset leader who carries 3 decades in the wellness industry. Kristen equips the busy woman and entrepreneur with tools and strategies to ditch hustle and adopt a rest approach in biz and life. She takes an undiet approach, focusing on faith-based approach to wellness for sustained results. You'll learn in Kristen's whole health Trinity foundations that growing in whose you are, solidifying deeper faith will be exactly what will get you the results that didn't stick before when it comes to health and nutrition. Kristen is the host of the Health, Healing, and Holiness podcast and a host of Health Matters and Creating Your Best Life, both on Rogers TV. She has worked with various corporations in the last couple of decades, educating and inspiring a whole health approach with simplicity when it comes to living a healthy lifestyle. Let's meet Kristen Owens. Hi, Kristen. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because prioritizing whole health over hustle is such an interesting topic for today's conversation, and I want to know more. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Petra, for having me. I'm very excited to be here and talk about this title that I believe everybody needs to hear, because I think we live not just in North America, but over where you are as well, that hustle is something that most people are part of, regardless of what they do. I'm going to make it easier so that hustle doesn't actually take their health down the wrong road, because that's what it can do.
Amazing. Yes, I definitely want to know more. We're all really busy and caught up in all of that. So I'm very intrigued to hear what you want to share about that. For starters, do you want to share a little bit with us about yourself, your story, where you've come from, and what you do today to make this whole health and hustle work?
Yes. Okay, well, this is a great question because I have been in the wellness industry for 30 years. I started when I was 20, and it will be 30 years this year. And health and wellness is what I love. It's what I eat, breathe, and sleep. But fast forward all of these years, up until about a year and a half or so ago, I found myself in a place of hustling, which is striving, which is kind of more grinding and trying to make things happen in my own strength, as opposed to allowing things to happen, because it's like, well, I don't see my business growing as quickly as I want it to grow. And how come this person over here is doing a similar thing, but how come they're further ahead? A lot of comparisons started coming in, just a lot of these negative voices and negative thoughts, and the negative started coming in and actually impacting why I was doing what I was doing in the first place. I believe, as a holistic nutritionist, I've been a nutritionist now for 17 years. I believe that we need to eat clean food. We need to really focus on what we're putting in our body. And I do believe that many times we need to fill the gaps with supplementation from whole foods. And so I ended up in the network marketing industry, which is a great industry. I'm not knocking the industry. For me personally, what happened was I started getting caught up in the next goal and then the next goal. And then it was, yes, I was serving people at the same time, but it was not the same thing. And I don't know anyone listening if they've experienced this before, because a lot of people will say, but yeah, that's kind of what you do. It is, but if you've been there, you get it. And if you know, you know. And I actually was hustling. I was trying to make things happen in my own strength as opposed to just falling back on faith. I got to a place where it didn't matter how many hours I was working. It was going, 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 as opposed to it was grinding versus the grace and the place of rest, which we may touch on today. What happened was I achieved a huge goal last November of 2022, and January came, and I kid you not, Petra, it was like everything, all of my interest, all of my motivation, everything had been completely cut off. I actually started questioning whether I should be doing what I was doing. Am I supposed to be in the health industry anymore? Like, it was the strangest thing I've never experienced before. And I ended up going to my homeopath because I realized, I didn't know, that I was actually burnt out. And I was burnt out not because I was physically doing too much, because since 2020 happened, I wasn't really doing as much as I was prior physically. But guess where the burnout came from? And this is why I do a lot of mindset work in my practice, is it came up here in my mind, like it does everyone else listening. All of the things I said, it's not happening fast enough. What am I doing wrong? What should I be doing? What am I not doing? Like, oh my gosh, the storm that was happening in my mind was insane. Last year, I had to heal my body. So that's what I did. I started healing, and I started noticing as I got deeper into building my faith and growing my faith more and renewing my mind, like changing my mindset, noticing, which we'll talk about, noticing that I was focusing too much on what was going back here in the rearview mirror versus what I needed to be focusing forward, and where I was going versus where I came from and what wasn't happening. And that's what was causing a lot of issues. This fall happened to come around, and I started noticing it lifting. I started getting back to the basics and the foundation, which is what I teach in my practice. And here I am now in January, going back 1 year in a completely different place than I was 1 year ago today. And we're recording this obviously in January, and this is obviously coming out later, but 1 year later, it's amazing. So why I do what I do as a nutritionist, as a mindset coach, and as somebody that's really helping women especially, but men too, how they can really incorporate faith into growing themselves in their health, in their business, in their career, in their families, is making sure that we are prioritizing our whole health, which is our whole health is spirit, soul, and body, and prioritizing whole health without the actual hustle. How can we live every day from a place of rest versus from that place of it's never enough? We don't have enough money. We don't have all of that. I know there's people listening right now that are like, oh yeah, I've been there, or I am there. Hopefully today I can share just some easy steps. And this is actually the free product that I've created as well. It goes into this also, as to what can you do right now that's super simple, that's basic, that's foundational, that is fundamental to actually get you to the next step. Because if we're focusing on tomorrow and then the next day, and what am I going to do in a month, but we're not thinking about today, let's just focus on today. Let's just go one day at a time. And depending on what we're going through in our life, it doesn't matter what you are, financial distress, addiction, whatever it is. Addictions can be many things. Let's just start with today and focus on doing today well. And then let's just worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to bring its own stuff. That's how I got to where I am today, doing what I've been doing for years, but in a different perspective to really help people get those fundamentals down, because it really doesn't matter about anything else unless you've got the fundamentals and the basics down. What we're doing is we're really looking to help people, as the saying goes, build their house on the rock versus on the sand. Because if you don't have your foundations in place, if you don't have the fundamentals down, you're building your house on the sand. It's going to crumble. I really hope that women, I have a couple guy clients as well, but a lot of women that come through, that they will say that I feel more solid. And I feel that it doesn't matter what's coming in my life. I am stronger and healthier because we've looked at that, but I feel solid from a deeper level, like from the core.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And as I'm listening to you kind of explain what happened for you the past few years, I'm thinking there are a lot of listeners that, like you said, maybe going through the same thing or may have gone through the same thing, not quite even recognizing that that is burnout and maybe just wondering what the heck is going on with them, what happened to them. And if you make the decision to change and if you make the decision to heal, was there a time where you found that difficult because you had to let go of certain expectations? You had to let go of some of the things you may have thought you wanted or needed. There may have even been some guilt involved or almost like a grieving process letting that go. How did you experience that and how did you heal through that?
That's a really great question because I call it the wilderness. I didn't make that term. It just is a lot of people that, especially in the faith community, met so many women that have said the same thing, that I feel like I'm in this wilderness. I'm like, yes, it's a wilderness. Think about if you're in a wilderness, you're not really sure where you're going. You're kind of lost in the woods. I think of Hansel and Gretel. You know the story? Hansel and Gretel. That's what I think about. They're in the woods and they have no idea where they're going. It's a wilderness. That's what it felt like because I didn't understand why I was experiencing this because all I know is health. That's all I know. So it was confusing. And then, of course, what I was trying to do was let go and surrender. So my relationship with the Lord, with God specifically, not religion, but relationship, I turned to that even more so than ever had before. I mean, it's been 25 years since I've had that relationship, but sometimes in your life, there's times where those listening, it could be financial, it could be health, whatever it is. Think about the last 4 years. There's certain things in our life that sometimes we get to where you don't know where to turn. For me, I turned back to my faith. And for me, that's what helped me through because he was able to guide me the one foot in front of the other. Because what I'm like being in the wilderness, what I'm like typically, but especially in the wilderness, because if I don't see where the light is or I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go, I try to do things in my own strength. And I know there's a lot of people that do that. We try to do things in our own strength. And it doesn't really get us anywhere because we're still, and one thing that God had said to me is stop trying to do things on your own. You're supposed to be, you're weak, I am strong. You're supposed to be leaning back on me and allowing me to help you to do that. Honestly, Petra, that's what I did. I said, okay, forgive me for that. I didn't even realize I was doing that. And I am now going to rely and surrender all of that stuff that's not helping me. It's making me more negative. It's making me more worried. All of that stuff doesn't help us. We know that the worry, the fear, the doubt doesn't actually help us move forward. Those that are listening, if you're one of those people that you're constantly in that, then it's really important for you to surrender that because if you're constantly in that, it's going to actually create a vibration within your body where disease thrives and healing can't happen. Because when we're thinking when we have emotions that are negative, because where do emotions come from? This is part of my whole spirit, soul, body approach is where do those negative emotions come from? They come from thoughts that we're thinking. If we're thinking, I'm kind of answering your question in a whole big way here, but they come from our thoughts. We're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in this wilderness. I don't know how to get out and I don't know what to do. And I feel this way and my life is falling apart and you fill in the blanks. But then that thought actually becomes the emotion. When we're thinking that, so those listening right now, think about the situation you're in right now. What's the thought you're thinking about that situation? And now, how are you feeling? Because sometimes we don't know our thoughts, but if we look at how we're feeling stressed out. We're feeling something happened and our car payment didn't go through, or finances is a big thing for a lot of people. And so I hear this a lot. So I tend to end up using, even though I am a health person, finances impact our health. I tend to use a lot of financial examples because I've gone through that myself and it's very real. If something's happening financially, is that situation creating a thought of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Which is then creating fear or worry or anxiety or whatever it is. So we have to start thinking, this is what I actually did, is I really got hold of my thoughts, which helped with the emotions, because I tend to be more of the person that would worry more so. My husband, on the other hand, is not that way. Like, yeah, I'm sure it would come, but he nips it in the butt right away. it's easier for me to wallow in that a little bit. And wallowing makes it bigger, right? What we focus on expands. For anyone that's going through this right now, which I'm sure there's many people, because this is life, we're not going to get away from it. But what I'm hoping for you, for those of you listening, is how you go about starting from right now that you're listening, how you go about the rest of your day or tomorrow with the issues that are happening in your life, because we're not on this earth free of troubles and trials and tribulations. They're there and they're going to always be there. But it's how we choose to perceive it and how we choose to go about handling it. So for me personally, I can't handle it on my own. So I go to my God and he helps me and he strengthens me. The first thing is, regardless of where anyone is in their faith, is we've got to be aware of what is bothering us, what issues are at hand. And then we have to be aware of what the thoughts are. And then how are those thoughts making us feel? Because the emotions make people do crazy things. So that's part of it. I mean, there's so many things. The other thing I would say I did was when we talk about the physical body, is I knew going through this and healing from burnout, everyone's burnout is to a different degree, is how am I taking care of my body? One thing to note is when a person is stressed, they need more magnesium. Our body burns a lot of magnesium when we're under stress. And when we talk about stress, our stress response is there to protect us. The problem is nowadays is we have chronic stress. There's so many stressors from physical, emotional, mental, food, toxins in the air. It's coming at us from everywhere. We're back in the day, many years ago. It was more like, okay, well, you come across something life-threatening. The body goes through the stress response. We're in fight or flight. It's quick. It lasts short. And then we move on and we're back to normal. The problem is nowadays, we've got so much stress bombarding us and our body does not know how to handle it. I've had people say to me, but our body knows how to detoxify and our body knows how to deal with these stressors. And yes, our body does. But we have to remember that now in 2024, even back 10 years ago, but definitely in 2024, we have stressors we've never had before. From work stress. I live in Toronto area and the traffic is insane. So traffic stress, kid stress, parental stress, like we can make a whole list. And those stressors, the body does not recognize the difference from those stressors, emotional stressors, spiritual, physical, to it doesn't know the difference. It just thinks, I need to protect myself and I'm shutting everything off. That stress is going to impact your gut health, which is why I look at in working with people, we look at gut health because all disease and all health begin in our gut with gut health. And then what's happening up here in our mind, because what's happening in your mind is going to impact your gut and how well your gut functions or not. So you see how it all works together. And this is why when I say I was trained as a holistic nutritionist, I say whole, WHOLE, because it's the whole body. It's the whole person. And we are not just a physical body. We are not just a physical body. We have a soul, which is the will, the mind, the emotions, and we are a spirit. Most people know that. So it's really important to recognize, number one, understand how to take care of the body, to support our body. Like back I was saying, the magnesium, when you are stressed, your body uses more magnesium, it uses more minerals. We have to make sure we're putting that back in, not from synthetic sources, ideally from more food-based sources, which can be supplemental food-based sources. But these are the things that are really important to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. And so it's really hard to do that by ourselves, and which is why I do what I do, because I can help people and walk them through that. So it's one thing at a time, right? One thing at a time. Do you have to do everything? No, because you'll never stick with it. That's a long answer to your question.
True. That's very interesting what you're sharing. So you talk about whole health and whole with the WHOLE. Considering that we are not just a physical being that has physical needs, but that many more things go into actually looking at how we can holistically be whole in our health. And you've developed some pillars around whole health that you incorporate when you work with clients. So do you want to share a little bit what those pillars are? You touched on them briefly in the beginning. Do you want to explain to us a little bit what each of them is, just briefly, and how you incorporate those when you work with your clients?
Yeah. So as we were talking about a little bit ago, is the pillars are spirit, soul, and body. because we are all of that. We encompass all of that. So we have to, if we truly want to be healthy, if we want to truly get to a place of rest, working from imagine, think of the word rest and peaceful and flow and ease. Like when I say those words, those of you listening, think about how that makes you feel versus grinding and striving and pushing and doing it in your own strength. Oh my gosh, that's stressful in itself. That in itself is, we're looking at how are those words even impacting spirit, soul, and body. When we look at body, we're looking at the physical body. It's really important for us to learn how to steward our body well, steward our health well, because we only have one body. We all know this. And one thing to note is we have this body, and in 7 years, we can have an entirely new body. Our cells die and regenerate. But the question is, what are you doing? What are you doing every day to take care of that body? I'll just say very quickly is sleep is number one. You can be doing all the right things, but if you are not sleeping, and for women, especially perimenopause and menopause, this can be a challenge. However, it can be fixed because your body was designed to heal, but sleep is important. So I always would say, this is what you want to write down, is we could do a whole podcast on just the body and just sleep in itself. But with sleep, you don't want to go to bed the same day that you wake up. So that means if you're going to bed after 12 o'clock midnight and you're waking up that day, which you probably are, that's not going to be healthy for our body. Ideally between 10, 11 latest. And the reason for that is because your body heals when you sleep. So your adrenal glands, we're talking about stress and hustle. Your adrenal glands are the stress gland. It releases stress hormones. But when does it recharge? It recharges between 10 and 1, 10 and 2 kind of time frame. We need to make sure that we're getting those early hours. It's much better off if we go to bed earlier and wake up earlier. I know there's people on shift work, and that's a whole other story. We've just got to do the best that we can with what we have. We have to remember that. And if you can't go to bed, ideally when is best for the body, have compassion for yourself and work on doing what you can do, because that lack of compassion will also create stress in your body. The other thing is hydration. Simple. I'm all about the basics. Hydration. But how many of us are actually hydrating well? For example, when you're stressed, your body uses way more water. If you don't have enough water within your body for your body to use, it's going to find it. It's going to find it from your organs. Most people are walking around dehydrated. Water is more important than food. We can't go 40 days without water. We need to have water. So it's really, really important. The last thing I would say with body, there's a lot of pieces to the body, but I just chose these three, is not skipping meals. Because blood sugar balance, so balancing those hormones. And when we talk about stress, I see a lot of women skipping meals. And this is not so good because it's going to have you craving. It's going to mess your hormones up completely, which means that your menopausal symptoms are not going to be fun and will be worse. And also PMS symptoms as well. Making sure that we're eating meals. And I won't even get into the intermittent fasting or any of that. But ideally, if you are, it's in a window. To have those 3 meals within a window. You're never getting hungry. If your stomach is growling, it's trying to tell you something. That's what I would say with body. Now, when we move into the spirit, I take a faith-forward focus. I kind of sort of talked about it in my testimonial, is where's your faith? Do we need to build our faith? Because faith is one thing that will move out fear. Are we living in fear? Are we living in worry and doubt and all of these things? So how can we start to grow in that? And in my community, this is some of the stuff that I help women to do. But what I'm going to just say about this is, are you looking in the rearview mirror about why your health isn't where it needs to be, why this isn't happening, why you're not further ahead, why we're not, right? Just fill in the blanks. Instead, and I'm saying this because I know this to be very true, because this is not where it's easy for me. I'm speaking this, and those of you that feel convicted by hearing this know that I still go through this. I just know, and I promise you, it works. Okay. It absolutely is imperative. We're focusing in the direction we're going. So that's where in my community, we talk about writing things out. We talk about repeating things, getting into your unconscious mind, because you're driven 97% from your unconscious. So what are you playing over and over and over? So are we focusing forward, or are we looking back at what hasn't happened, what's not happening, all the things that don't work? This is a big part of, even though people will come to me for help, this is a big part of what I do with women, because I'm telling you, the spirit, the soul, and the spirit pillars are even almost more important than the body. Because if you can get those two in place, the body it starts to become easy. And your body, you change, your physical health changes. So then as we move into the mind, they go hand in hand. The mind is mind renewal. What we focus on expands, what we think about comes about. What are you thinking about most of the time? What I would recommend for those of you listening is, if you're not sure, is take a wristband, like one that hurts, like a rubber elastic band, put it around your wrist and be intentional. Intention is everything. Be intentional about what your thoughts are every day. And every time you think something negative, every time you're thinking or focusing on the rearview mirror, or you're saying something negative about yourself or bad to yourself, or whatever it is, snap yourself. And you will be amazed at how many times we snap ourselves. That's a really good, because that snap, there's a bit of pain, and that's triggering you to not do that again. And that's triggering you to say, oh, okay, yes, that's right. I got to focus on this. That's what it takes. When you do the work, changes happen. Those are just kind of a little nutshell. Those are the three pillars. They all work together. And when we have the spirit and the soul piece together and really getting good at that, oh my gosh, the stress response in your body totally changes. Totally changes. Those are the three. And in my freebie, you'll see that we go over those three, and you'll be able to actually track some of the 5 top things that I do every day that help. And as long as you don't give up and you just keep focusing forward, things will change. You may not notice it so much initially, but then you go a year later, 6 months later, and you look back and you say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize as I was going through it, just like the wilderness, sometimes you don't realize how far you're getting in the wilderness because you feel like you're still in it. But then 6 months later, all of a sudden, you think it's okay to look back in terms of how far you've come. You think, wow, all of that actually helped. And oh, how I responded to this person or this event, you realize it's different than what you were doing before. But you've got to have the intention and the desire to want to change, or nothing changes.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? We can't be expecting things to go differently if we're not actually doing anything differently. So, yeah, thank you for explaining those pillars. I think that would be really helpful for listeners to kind of understand some of those components and what they can do to become aware of more things as well. And if we've kind of piqued the curiosity for our listeners here, do you want to go over some of the programs and services that you offer? I mean, obviously they do incorporate the pillars that we just talked about, but what do you offer and how can listeners connect with you and work with you?
Right now, I've opened up my one-on-one coaching with people. So whether it is someone's coming because I have a lot of women 40 plus, they're really looking at, and definitely the woman is someone that's doing all the things, maybe there's overwhelm. Maybe she's tired of just feeling like no matter what she's doing her best, but no matter what she's doing, she's not making headway. Maybe a lot of what I said, she's like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's kind of me. Then one-on-one coaching is something that I've opened up again because I wasn't doing that for a long time. And so I've opened that again because it really helps me to get laser focused on that person. Because with one-on-one coaching, it's not the same. I don't have a program where it's like, okay, this is this week, this is the next week. It's where's the person at? And maybe that person needs more of the mindset work. Maybe it's more developing that area versus it really depends on the person. So there's that. I will be putting together a group program. It's not yet. I'm, again, through this whole process in the last year and a half, I've really learned to not get ahead of myself and stay focused on where I'm at. And so that's where the one-on-one coaching, being where we are at the beginning of the year, and also my podcast that was just launched, that is Health, Healing, and Holiness. It talks all about this, and I will have amazing experts and guests that will come on to also talk about the same things. So that's available as well. And then, of course, I have the freebie. You can follow me on Instagram or on Facebook just to get more nuggets. But right now, as I said, maybe, in April, May, I'll have that program up. But right now it's one-on-one coaching. But I always encourage people to reach out, email, which is probably down in the show notes at hello@KristenOwensWellness.com. Reach out. And if you have questions, if you want to jump on a discovery call where we just chat, find out where you're at, what is it that you're looking for? How do you want to move forward? And seeing if I'm a fit. Because the fact is that I don't take everyone. I want women to be ready to make the changes, because it's more painful if you know you want it, but it's like, I can't, I'm not really ready to implement. That's okay. Maybe it's not your time, but I will tell you that when you implement and allow me to be that, almost like that buddy, but also a coach that has a loving kick in the pants for you as well, because that's what we need. Women always leave my community, or women in my community have worked with me have always said, people are telling me I'm aging backwards. These are women in their 50s. People are telling me that I sound different, I look different. They always come back with amazing results, not because of me, but because they're doing it. They're implementing it. And you have to make sure that you jive with that person. So those are some of the ways at this point, and that will be growing. I do want to put out a book. I don't know if that's going to be in 2025. I'm not sure, but I know that's something that's going to come as well. So yeah, those are some ways.
Exciting. Thank you for sharing that. And as Kristen mentioned, she has her podcast called Health, Healing, and Holiness. And you can listen in from your favorite podcast provider. And we, of course, will be linking to all of Kristen's offerings in the show notes as well. So check there for the program, services, the freebie, how you can connect with her community, how you can work with her, and how you can listen to her show. Well, this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope our listeners have enjoyed this journey into prioritizing whole health over hustle as much as I have. I have learned so much again in this time that we've spoken, and it has just been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, Kristen. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much, Petra. I had fun and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and take care. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.